This week in the news, journalists trying to slander game studios yet again. The co-founder of Suckerpunch leaves the studio. The aftermath of the Game Awards is here. And more on this week's Old Man Rages at the News. Before we head into the news, hit the like and subscribe buttons and enjoy the show. We're kicking off this week with a couple of stories that are the perfect depictions of why we can't have nice things. And we're starting with people complaining about game developers listening to their customers. Yes, this is all because the CEO of CI Games, Marek Tymiński, answered a question a fan of the game asked. Question being, will there be revealing outfits and armor for female characters? Yeah, I know. It started off with this tweet from Insider Gaming and the X floodgates opened. All because some people can't stand seeing a bunch of pixels on the screen in a manner that doesn't fall in line with their worldview that can only be described as modern-day Don Quixote. The biggest example is with Paul Tassi here writing, and I quote, "You can just put this in your game and it's fine. You don't have to be a huge loser about it." Yeah, that screams a sane response, you know. The funny part of all this is that out of everyone who brought receipts, it was the Roach King himself. He showed a screenshot of the source itself and mentioned, and I quote, "Replying yes to a question doesn't seem like being a huge loser. It seems like you're exaggerating it to make what he's saying sound problematic. This weird media crusade against sexualized characters is failing. Just stop it." Now, instead of admitting he was wrong or just stopping there, Paul Tassi had the brilliant idea of publicly humiliating himself even further with this tweet that got ratioed twice. After this ratio, it was radio silence because no matter what he said after this, it would have been for naught. The thing is, this man can't learn a lesson. This tweet itself proves it. He sarcastically wrote, "Oh yeah man, I was totally wrong about the Lords of the Fallen guy yesterday. He is in fact super cool." Talk about a sore loser. But anyways, if anything, my recommendation for him is to start training to put the fries in the bag. Another person replied to this tweet with, "Well, he's right. Are you really going to say we didn't have crazy censorship in the last 10 years? In every game you have super masculine guys with no shirts, but God forbid you do the same with women. Also, replacing normal genders with body types was absolutely mental." And in classic journalist fashion, he replied with, "If that's your definition of absolutely mental, I don't know what to tell you." Completely dodging the point made here. Mind you, these are the people who are supposed to be neutral and report on things how they are. If they dodge questions like this and keep being a bunch of babies, how are we supposed to trust them? Another thing came out of all of this, and that would be the gamer trying to cement itself as the dumbest news outlet out there. Literally in the first paragraph of the article they wrote, they couldn't contain their hatred for the game and wrote this as if it's supposed to be a powerful jab. They even had the balls to end with, and I quote, "Whatever you want I guess, just make sure to wash your hands when you're done." My brother in Christ, the people you criticize have better hygiene than all of your employees combined. Not only that, but they're still using Baldur's Gate 3 as an example of success for DEI, and as I mentioned multiple times, it succeeded because it's an authentic D&D experience you can get in a single-player format. There have been more failures for DEI games than successes, and they can't get it through their thick skulls. Oh, brother. The biggest annoyance I find with these journalists is that they flat out lie. They wrote, and I quote, "There was a belief among certain audience that video game critiques and progressive gamers were looking to tear Stellar Blade down, believing it stood against the DI agenda we'd been slowly but surely infecting the entire medium with. And here's the proof. PC gamers and called the plot dull, the characters bland, basically trying to tear it down. IGN also used the same rhetoric, claiming that the characters lack personality. And let's not forget about the fact that IGN had to apologize to Shift Up for describing Eve as a doll to be used by someone who has never seen a woman. I hope everybody understands my viewpoint now with what I think about these fuckheads. Hell, if you don't believe me, the CEO of CI Games called out the gamer for their bullshit. The article didn't even cover the last few trailers whatsoever, nor anything the game has done in the past. That is worth noting, mind you. But in the end, I wouldn't be surprised if journalists jump on their chairs excited for what Sony is developing. An AI to censor games in real time, because God forbid we need that. This AI system is going to be censoring and modifying mature and sensitive content such as violence, well, RIP GTA 6 I guess, gore, sexual content, and the worst offender of them all, profanity, all in the name of protecting children. That is, if we're to believe Sony. Now, this thing, you know what, I'm just gonna go off script here. This thing has a wider implication than just censoring games. Let me put it like that. This is what could potentially lead into George Orwell's nightmarish world that he created. I know I've used this before, but 1984 is around the door, and George Orwell predicted the future at this rate. But anyways, let's get back to whatever resembles a script here, if I can pull it back in somehow. You know what? Fuck it. Companies shouldn't be responsible for protecting irresponsible parents' kids. If your child steals your credit card, uses it to buy something online, that ain't the fault of the company. That just screams you failing as a parent. And in terms of censoring content, we have the ESRB rating system for a reason, you fucking morons. My pro tip is drop this AI bullshit into an active volcano alongside the people who suggested this in the first place. Yeah, I guess we don't hate journalists enough. I'm pretty sure that next week we're gonna have somebody on the game journalist side praising this bullshit. But anyways, I digress. And in more reasons why we can't have nice things, Larian Studio is in a bit of hot water. The CEO Sven Vinke promised that Divinity will be next level. Cool. I do hope that's the case, but the internet really clutched onto this right here. I'll quickly read it out for y'all. But before I start, I'd just like to point out one thing. This was greatly obfuscated by everyone's favorite Jason Schreier. Now, with that out of the way, the quote goes as follows. Under Vinke, Larian has been pushing hard on generative AI, although the CEO says the technology hasn't led to big gains in efficiency. He says there won't be any AI-generated content in Divinity. Everything is human actors. We're writing everything ourselves. But the creators often use AI tools to explore ideas, flesh out PowerPoint presentations, develop concept art, and write placeholder text. The use of generative AI has led to some pushback at Larian. I quote, but I think at this point, everyone at the company is more or less okay with the way we're using it. Vinke said, alright, where do I start? He admitted that the tech isn't leading into efficiency gains, and even said that everything is done by human hands. But no, the internet sees AI and they go haywire. And I personally think that was Schreier's intention all along. But anyways, you be the judge of that. Especially since, just like any other journalist, Schreier tried to weasel himself out of the controversy by posting the transcript after there was already backlash. The backlash is so huge that Sven made a new tweet further elaborating, writing that they have 72 artists, which 23 are concept artists, and plan on hiring more. even reiterated, we use AI tools to explore references just like we use Google and art books. At the very early ideation strategies, we use it as a rough outline for composition, which we replace with original concept art. There is no comparison. He also linked this article for anyone who wants to know what else they use AI for. It's almost as if they use AI as a tool and not a replacement for people. Who would have thought that Larian is using common sense? Now, a former Larian employee went for a double whammy with the whole AI shit show and alleges that there was SA and fascists at the workplace. Spoiler warning, the thread got deleted and the account got deactivated. Shocking, I know. Worst part is, none of this makes sense. She claimed that one of the engineers was radicalized and watching videos in the office about, quote, cultural Marxism, and they alleged the whole 9 yards. You know, the usual cysts, phobes, and whatnot. At this point, I'm not even gonna bother going over those. She also alleged that people went to Sven and said, hey, this guy's a weirdo fascist. He's making everyone uncomfortable. He's at odds with the team's values. Okay, so you're telling me people went to the CEO instead of HR. Okay, maybe the CEO is fine with people taking issues to him, but I sure find it weird that it only went to the CEO and not human resources too. I mean, human resources literally are supposed to protect the company. Another reason why I find this weird is because she alleged that multiple people went to Sven. Statistically, it would have been likely that HR also got wind of this, but nope, nothing about that. Allegedly, Sven gave this response: he's invaluable to the team, it's too hard to replace him this close to release. And the former employees claimed the vibes got worse after that. Not only that, but she alleged that one of the employees made a weird remark about her tits and grabbed her crotch in the middle of the office. Now, finally it gets to the report part. She boiled it down to, and I quote, more importantly, we were told that if someone is important enough, they will not be dealt with. Which I find hell alarming here, but if anything of this is true, then there should have been some form of evidence, not just, hey, take my word for it type of shit. If this was going on, more people would have spoken out about it, and someone would have at least had audio to show that it's happening. I mean, not sure what their policy in terms of bringing phones in the office is, but if they can bring phones in, you know, it's not exactly hard to record something on a phone. Now, here's a question for you all. If there was SA at work, why wasn't this reported officially? Larian is a Belgian studio, and a surface-level Google search links to Belgium's Federal Public Service website depicting what can be done in the event of such events happening at work. My 2 cents on the matter is they posted this in order to try to character assassinate the CEO and the whole studio itself. Why else would they just randomly drop it while the studio was under fire for their stance on AI? At the end of the day, the public can be a judge of that. All I do is read the news. In other news, it's official! The PlayStation X account posted that the co-founder of Suckerpunch left the studio. Starting January 1st, creative and technical leaders Jason Connell and Adrian Bentley will step into the new roles of the studio's head. Now, here's the thing I find interesting. The dude has been there for 3 decades. And the last game was allegedly a massive success. Why did he have to leave? Something doesn't feel quite right with this, but I'm not gonna speculate without any evidence. Feel free to voice what you think might have happened in the comments. And now, moving on to another disappointment. Ubisoft stocks managed to go below €6. And a little bit of history just to paint a better picture. Yes, there were dips in the past, but not as severe as the ones currently. In 2011, it traded for €3.74. In 2002, it traded for €2.54. At launch, it traded for €2.52. And in the off chance the graphic doesn't say it, I will. Damn, how the mighty have fallen. Another thing that happened with them is that they acquired March of the Giants from Amazon. Not only that, but they also acquired the people working on the game. There's no details about the deal on Ubisoft's website, however, according to Variety, Amazon will provide Ubisoft with marketing support for the game on Twitch. And according to the source within Ubisoft, the acquisition consisted of a nominal fee and considerations tied to the game's long-term success. Now, what does that mean? I have no idea. What I can say is that Ubisoft doesn't need more fat on them right now. What they need is to get their hands out of whatever they put them in. Apparently it's not their ass at this point. And actually get a good game out and about. Not drag other game studios down with them. Moving on. The new data for Black Ops 7 is out, and it's just that the player count has halved in 12 months. Data from LNA Analytics suggests that Black Ops 7 sold 401,000 copies on Steam 26 days after launch, which is laughable compared to Black Ops 6, which sold 2.3 million units during the same period. The biggest hitter is that Battlefield 6 sold 5.7 times faster on Steam following its early October launch. Video Game Insights provide additional statistics with Steam data indicating that Black Ops 7 underperformed the three most recent Call of Duty games by a wide margin, with a concurrent user peak that is 80% lower than that of its 2022's Modern Warfare 2. Now, there was also small back and forth between the COD leaker and Activision leadership. The Ghost of Hope wrote this, and to quote the more important part, Microsoft wants to see Call of Duty overall move towards a smoother revenue stream and reduced expenditure patterns. Microsoft has also supposedly told higher-ups within Call of Duty that changes are very much required and nothing is off the table, including studio mergers and a complete rethink of monetization models within the franchise. Now, according to Activision and Xbox reps, leadership across both teams are allegedly completely aligned on investing in the future of Call of Duty and innovating for the community. The thing is, Hope replied with a laughing emoji, and when asked for a source, he replied with quite a few. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was a PR move from Activision to say, hey, we're actually fine. And now moving on to what I promised last week, the fallout of the Game Awards is here. And it didn't take long for history to repeat itself. Dispatch fans call for gacha games to be disqualified from the Game Awards after they lost to Wuthering Waves. So Dispatch got nominated for the Best Debut, Independent Game, and Player Voice categories. While people didn't expect to win the Independent Game Award, there was a big campaign for the game to win the Player's Voice Award, but it still lost to Wuthering Waves. It isn't the first time that this happened, because back in 2022, Sonic Frontiers lost to Genshin. The Reddit user la_Volpa wrote on Reddit, I want to know the vote percentage. Wuthering Waves and Genshin Impact are both gacha-style games, and those developers tend to promise free pools in exchange for the vote and the win. It's genuine bribery. If we are to trust the Game Awards, it says 100% fan voted, and there's a confirmation tweet here showing that the rewards were given out for the award, but as far as promises for free pools, I couldn't find anything on their Twitter. I even went as far back as November, and the only thing I found was the developers giving out free rewards for even being nominated in the first place. So this to me is no different than a game giving out small DLC for free. Another Reddit user also mentioned that gacha games should be disqualified from this award, but my 2 cents on this is as follows. All games should be allowed to participate. Because if we replace the genre with, let's say, AFK games, like cookie clickers and whatnot, then it wouldn't be fair towards AFK games. It's still a game at the end of the day, and the Game Awards is and always has been a popularity contest. Well, excluding the time that game journalists want to interfere with it, but anyways, it has always been a popularity contest. Remember this game that was announced on the show? Yeah, these are the replies it keeps getting. Another hero shooter is just what the market needs, boys! Let's go! Yeah! About that. The news for it doesn't end there, considering its trailer on the Game Awards YouTube channel got ratioed hard. I wouldn't even be surprised if people just went on Highguard's YouTube channel and just made the mess of the dislike button. Also, would you look at this? Our favorite punching bag, the gamer, is also back on this segment as well. Oh boy, they can't go bankrupt quickly enough in my opinion, but anyways, I digress. This time they're talking about Highguard. Whoa! Brave and stunning the gamer is defending another slop game. Anyways, getting into the meat and potatoes of the article they wrote. There's still over a month for Highguard to launch and many people are already dunking on it. It hasn't been an easy few years for multiplayer games, with many shutting down in a short amount of time. Concord was arguably the most high profile one of these, thanks to PlayStation's big investment into it. The name has now become a descriptor for games that players think will fail, like Highguard. I kinda find it interesting how they didn't even mention how big of a flop Concord was. It's almost as if it goes against the narrative. Naturally, in the next paragraph, they talk about how people discussed that the game doesn't look interesting and it will probably be shut down. Now, for the most part, I agree with that. But they also finished it off with, of course, all of this without playing the game at all in the vain attempt to frame it in such a way that it's possible it won't end up like the other failed hero shooters. They even wrote that it's not fair to compare it to games like Concord. Look, I'm not sure what they're on right now, but I want some of that for sure. Let's not compare a hero shooter to another hero shooter. And no, the hate isn't a knee-jerk reaction, and I'm using hate here loosely, because people are dissatisfied with what they see, obviously. I mean, yeah, you're gonna have people that are nuts and are gonna send death threats out, but that's not limited to just gamers. Every community has unhinged people in it, not just the games. But anyways, I digress. The whole point of a trailer is to show off parts of the game, not to shower it with praise and gargle the company's balls at the end of the day. Also, I very much implore you lot to look into what projects the developers of Highguard worked on in the past. And let's put it like that. The comparison to Concord is somewhat on point here. Speaking of devs, the Highguard devs are also angry at players that are calling their game Concord 2. One of them ended up locking their Twitter account for the time being. One of the replies here also reminded them that, and I quote, "If you can't see actual valid criticism apart from the trolls, then you'll be left wondering why you're deleting this off of your resume in 2 years. Couldn't have said it better myself." And you'd think that's all for the news from this year's Game Awards, but nope, far from it. This time Kotaku did actual reporting and managed to find how much it costs to put an ad on the Game Awards. Now, as per usual, Kotaku loves to fluff up their news pieces with random bullshit that doesn't matter, or to try to get their viewpoints across, but I'll skip reading that, that's not important. What's important is two sources cited that, according to them, a 60-second trailer during the 2025 ceremony can cost up to $450,000, while a 3-minute trailer costs $1 million. Those two sources said that they had not been briefed on this year's rates, but it sounded in line with what they expect from previous years. Another source told Kotaku that Sandfall Interactive bought a lot of tickets, which were around $300 each, to ensure most of their team could arrive. Mind you, this isn't just tickets here. This doesn't provide other expenses like food, hotels, getting them to the US in the first place, you know, all that jazz. Now, journalists are still journalists though, and they have to hate on good games. So the hate on Expedition 33 for winning so many awards needs to flow. This guy doesn't believe it deserved the Best RPG award because of the other nominations in this category. They go on to talk about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and how the game should have been the one to win Best RPG. The article just keeps on glazing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and mind you, I'm not implying the game is bad. The game is good. What I'm saying is, just like how I said with Dispatch, this show is about popularity, nothing more. Even the communications director on Warhorse Studios posted on X that they got robbed. Frankly, this tells me that, well, it's just another toddler on the playground complaining about something at the end of the day. Doesn't fucking matter, really. It's not the attitude, old man. You should learn what other people fucking did and improve yourself. Just standing there crying about not winning an award is immature. But you know what? Here, PC Gamer gave you a Game of the Year award. Now you can stop crying about it on social media, and for those who wonder, yes, they actually took it seriously. Oh, brother. And to wrap things up this week, it's that time of the year again where we go over Sweet Baby Inc. This is like that one annoying zit you get that just doesn't go away no matter what you do. And as per usual, all of this is provided by Gothic Therapy. Go check them out for a full breakdown on this wildfire of a disaster. They sat through this shit show to get it out. If that doesn't earn at least a like on their video, I'm not sure what will. Now, I'll only cover a few parts of this since the damage to my brain cells is still healing from hearing all of it. So, here we go. Sweet Baby Inc. hosted another podcast, which is just what the internet needed, really. Another thing to confirm that they're a bunch of idiots. And the host framed Sweet Baby Inc.'s work as coming from a specific demographic. And I quote, "White men. These white men were not interested in the work that Sweet Baby Inc. put into for something that was already created." Spoiler alert, it ain't that, bitch. But yes, they are pulling out the racist card yet again. Not only that, but when they asked whether developers come to Sweet Baby Inc. with narrative outlined already, Sweet Baby Inc. employee Maria Beck bluntly answered, "We create those things," which contradicts what was publicly written about Sweet Baby Inc. on their own official website. Sometimes, when you have a bunch of idiots trying to do something, they themselves get outed. It makes my job easier. But, you know, don't tell them that. Beck also attributed criticism to alleged harassment against her and her colleagues, but made no acknowledgement of prior controversies. Especially the one that tried to shut down Sweet Baby Inc. detected, now DEI detected, that tracked the company's involvement and tried nuking Cabrutus, the founder of that Steam group's account, off the face of the platform. The more amusing thing is that she was frustrated that there is no maintained public lists of projects that Sweet Baby Inc. worked on, even though they themselves tried to shut the list that was already out there down. Talk about bending over backwards to make it sound like they're the ones being harassed when they're the harassers. Anyways, that's all for this week and this year. There won't be anything on the 29th, and the weekly roundup for the news will be back on the 5th of January. You know the drill. Hit the like and subscribe buttons. Happy holidays to everyone, and hopefully 2026 will be a bit better for games and the game industry in general.